I remember before kind of any of this started, any of this transformation, this personal transformation started, which was a really long time ago now. But I have a sense in me of what I was like then. And it seems to me, if I were to describe it, of the vastness of mostly where I seem to live from now, and I don't mean that in any big way, but I was living in this tiny little thought stream, mostly of reactivity, mostly defined of living in a personality identified with thoughts run by old wounded emotions carried from the family, and desperate on a certain level to hide in mummy's arms somewhere, or in a relationship, or in drinking, or in drugs. I was a terrible hedonist in those days, and I think I was a dramatic version of the unconscious state, of the regular human state with all its variables, that actually has a tendency to live life on what we call the surface. And so that means emotionally, mentally, spiritually, pulled around, yanked, tugged, pushed, prodded, demanded, slapped by experience as it just sort of comes in, without without having any real idea that there's a choice of how we can meet life. Maturity happens, deepening happens, opportunity happens, catastrophe happens, grief happens, loss happens, insight happens. Hopefully, not always, but it has for you guys. Otherwise, we wouldn't be meeting here. So it happens, and it starts to break the ice, or something seems like not enough, or the old habits that ran us, the old emotional, wounded habits that ran our lives, and our reactivity to the world stopped being satisfying, stopped working. And then it starts. And we could have been a seeker all our lives, but it starts with earnest, generally, when we start to get older, because there's something so exhausting about the constant searching and the constant wheel that goes around of reactivity to the world. So we start looking for something else. And that takes us to whatever spiritual modality one finds. And they're all useful, and they all help, and they're all great. And then maybe even the modalities themselves don't really offer something. There's still what we call the mechanism. The mechanism is still operating. The mechanism of resistance, the mental mechanism of aversion, the mental mechanism of I, of the really dominant I, because a lot of the modalities don't address the whole sense of I. But so if the modalities maybe don't work so much, then we start exploring and going deeper into well, into deeper areas. And so we can arrive at non-duality quite easily, especially these days. And then even non-duality can tend towards to be hijacked a little bit and become yet another perennial belief system almost, maybe. Embodied non-duality as it came to be known. I don't know how I'm going through a history of spiritual seeking here, but the embodied non-duality as it came to be known in the last kind of 5 years, it was becoming a buzzword in California when we were living there. And I have to say, it was mostly women who were starting to talk about it until it got hijacked a bit by the masculine, who said, yes, I agree, this is fantastic. Until that time, it was mostly women saying, yeah, but it's this rarefied state. It has to come down. It has to come in to what we might call the body, but it doesn't actually mean the body. It means the life. It means the life. Embodied non-duality just means into the life, into the relationships, into our very relationship with every single thing that is our experience. And that's where we're coming back down to earth right now, is that is deepening into being. That's the whole thing right there. And while spirituality and non-dual seeking and all of these kind of I don't want to call that's not a modality or anything, but while we're not including where it all goes within ourselves, in the body, in the triggered body, in the energy body, there is a tendency to end up at something like spiritual bypassing, what has become known as well as spiritual bypassing, which means that there's a fantastic enlightened awakened state somewhere there, and it's very transcendent and it's very beautiful, and it doesn't recognize anything of the human condition. And in that non-recognition of the human condition, with all of its flaws and its faults and its problems and its deepening and its struggles, it tends to become neglectful. It has to hold a position. Any spiritual way that holds a position for us, for me, for Ramoda and I, for me, isn't the true thing, isn't the deepest thing. There's something still being defended. So that's why the invitation here is to drop and drop and drop into what we might call the undefended place, the open place, the tender place. And that's where it gets difficult. And it gets difficult because of the tenacious nature of mind. It gets difficult because of the tenacious, persistent, and quite ruthless nature of experience as it comes towards us. And it becomes difficult because it seems to be hard to let go of what one might call root chakra belief systems of protection and survivalism. So old wounds that we have, some of them passed through generations of the family that are still playing themselves out in us, that in a deepening and a deepening and a deepening are called to be let go of, renders us into such a state, for instance, of vulnerability that it seems almost impossible to do. But that's because, in a way, we tend to want our spirituality to be absolute. Well, I'll reach that state, and then every human experience will be okay after that. I won't have any problems with the human experience, with its myriad challenges anymore. And I think what I'm bringing forth is a much more fluid, a much more human, recognizing the tenacious nature of the past, of the present, of the world as it comes towards us, as the challenges that we bring. So it's a work in practice. That's what we are, a work in practice. That's what a human being is. A poem that isn't finished until the final dot, until the final letter. And even then there's a postscript. But we have a desperation, of course, when the mind hijacks our desperation to fix things so that we feel safe. To fix ourselves, I don't mean just mend ourselves, I mean fix ourselves in space and time so that I don't have to deal with that again. But we don't work like that. We're biorhythmically moving all the time. We're in an energy stream of the universe that isn't just stuck in the same old place, even though the world doesn't seem to be rotating, and we seem to be always fixed in the same place here in Santa Fe in New Mexico. But meanwhile, the globe is spinning, forever spinning, and we're hurtling through some distant, unknown, weird vista in space, moving mysteriously from apparently one age into another age. There's nothing fixed about us at all, nothing. So the expectation that I can reach a place of fixedness simply because it's uncomfortable in any other way is an illusion. So we can turn up, knowing that, holding that illusion, we can turn up as warriors of openness and meet it here, now. Does it fix the outside world? I don't know. Does it fix how we're going to deal with X, Y, and Z? I don't know. Nobody knows. But it gives us a capacity to be able to hold and allow ourselves and the world to come into us and not get stuck so much on its way through. As our vast 5 sensing, 6 sensing, 7 sensing, perceptive nature, the world's entering us, almost as if it's seeking purification. And that kind of freaks us out somehow. So we sort of try and stop the world on its way into and through us. But it's like trying to stop a river. If you stop a river, you put a big block in a river, well, what's going to happen with that river? I'll tell you what's going to happen with that river. It's going to build up a lot of stuff. It's going to build up a lot of backlog. It's going to build up, and start, I don't know, going off. Start becoming a bit unpleasant. Because the design of the river, really, unless you're an otter or something, the design of the river is to flow, is to flow, is to flow. And the design of us is to flow, is to flow, is to flow. But no. Oh no. I'm going to hold on to that emotion and that thought since I was 4 or 10 or 12 or whatever. I'm going to hold on to that one and I'm going to torture myself with it. And I'm going to, because this shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening. And so in this shouldn't be happening, the world can't flow through you. And I have also noticed that the lighter I hold them and the more I practice opening to the mystery of life as it comes into my experience, the more I can somehow find a way, not through rigidity and not really through the mind, of tapping into a deeper flow of natural energy, of natural intelligence that seems to be there, that wants to have a good outcome, not just for me, but for everything and for everybody. Hard to find, hard to believe, because we're so fixated on control. But something is going on. Something deeper is usually going on. And these are strategies of finding out and hopefully falling or courting or meeting or allowing or saying, I see you, to the natural intelligence that runs everything anyway. Saying, I see you, I know you, and I'm going to give a bit of myself to you. I'm going to allow a bit of myself to rest in you, in this natural intelligence. And the mind goes, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Kavi. You've got me lost. But the heart and the soul and the gut and the solar plexus and the deeper parts of me, the more tender parts of me, yeah, that's true. I'd rather live the rest of my life softly. To soften that, that's all I can do. It's all I can do, is to soften that a little bit. And then see what happens, and see what happens, and see what happens. That's my invitation.